Good afternoon, everyone. Adaptive yoga is the topic for this afternoon session with Laura Nash, who is a certified yoga therapist, instructor, body worker, and an adaptive yoga specialist. She has an extensive background in adaptive yoga as well as working in rehab and critical care situations. I am Amita from Nourishtalk, a platform for natural and holistic therapies. I'd like to introduce all of you to Laura Nash, who's joining us live from Vallejo, California. Welcome, Laura.
Thank you. Thank you for being here, everybody.
Okay. So, do you want to start with what exactly is adaptive yoga?
Yeah. So as anybody who's taken any yoga classes knows that all poses are adaptive, right? We use blocks and straps and blankets and even bolsters so that we can get into our various asana or our postures in a way that feels good and comfortable in our bodies. And it's adaptive yoga uses those same principles, but at times we get into those poses with the help of a person, right? And so I'm kind of the sometimes the person that puts people that wouldn't otherwise be able to get into certain poses that would benefit them. I can help be their kind of their anchor and move with them physically, and even help them get into poses that they can do on their own. So this is a slide of a student of mine that is living with ALS, and I think this one is a video. So I help him get his legs into position. He has no use of his upper body, and then he's able to come into what's called Lotus Pose or Padmasana on his own and move his legs around. And I don't know if you have that on video, Anita.
No, I don't think I can turn on the video because this just came as a photo.
Okay, no problem. So this is again somebody who's been living with ALS for 19 years, and in this session, I was able to move his legs into Padmasana, and he's able to move his legs up and down, which gives him a lot of relief from low back pain. He sits in a wheelchair most of the day, and yeah, so this is opening his hips and lengthening his back with the
And,
help of the
and
yoga teacher.
how does it help? I mean, the yoga for him, how often do you do with him the
So
yoga?
with my private clients, I come to them once a week,
Okay.
and yeah, do body work on the various parts of their body that need it the most. And with ALS students and clients, I work on the parts that obviously don't move for them very well, or maybe not at all. So I do various poses and carry their arms for them and put them into twisting poses and things that help to refresh the nervous system. And in this pose in particular, Matt is finding a nice opening in his hips and a lengthening of his spine when he pulls the knees down toward the bed that he wouldn't be able to elicit on his own.
Sure,
So,
sure.
yeah. And this is another young woman living with ALS. And I'm using a strap here to facilitate an opening of her upper back like we do in fish pose. So this is her version of fish pose because she as well doesn't have the use of her arms or hands, so she can't push into the floor. And so using this strap helps her to open her chest, open the intercostal muscles, get better lung function and accessibility in this pose. So, and so this is one of my clients and his lovely partner. And he had an amputation about 7 months ago. And he's dealing with a lot of pain with his prosthetic leg. Sometimes we work with the leg on, sometimes we work with it off. And he's really learning how to walk again, right, with his prosthetic leg. And we're doing things to not only strengthen, but also to stretch that right hip where the amputation was, and also to learn how to use the prostheses in a way that will be more efficient and less painful and less reliant on his left leg.
Okay. And what was the reason for the amputation? If you think
Um,
you?
yeah, so the amputation, he was exposed to radiation,
Oh,
yeah, years and years ago, and eventually the blood vessels stopped carrying enough blood and oxygen to that right leg. So many years later, he found himself needing to amputate the leg.
oh, that's okay.
So. So this is another client living with ALS, and I did set this up to be a video, but that's okay. So this just shows one of my clients, and with him, I work with him in his recliner chair because I have the best access to him, and it's the most comfortable for him. He also, which is as you even just the last couple slides with the people with ALS probably have come to notice, this is another person who has no use of their upper arms, a little bit of use of his head. And with Jeff, I work a lot on, he tilts to one side, so I work a lot on lengthening one side of the neck. And it's called a 2-to-1 ratio in yoga therapy and adaptive yoga. When you kind of twist or lean to one side, you want to pull the body in the opposite direction for twice or even 4 times as long, right? You want to hold the body in the other direction so the muscles that have been shortened start to lengthen. So I work a lot with that on him. I also use my foot in the sides of my ALS clients to press into the rib cage to get a little bit more breath flowing into the lungs.
And you do any group classes also? I mean, these look like
Yeah.
they're all one-on-one.
Yes, yes, of course not now.
Of course, of course.
Of course not now during COVID, but in Colorado, I assisted at an adaptive yoga class that was quite large at Samadhi Yoga, and I also worked at Craig Hospital in Colorado, where I helped head up with Ken Sanesteven the first adaptive yoga class at Craig Hospital, which is a renowned hospital for spinal cord and brain injury. And in that class, I had a lot of people with, who were suffering with paraplegia, quadriplegia, brain injury, and sometimes dual injury. So yeah, it really, so here again, the benefits are a mile long, but a deepened ability to live with more integration, more connection, the capacity to live more fully in the body, right? So when we just sit in a wheelchair all day, it's really nice to have somebody come and move us around like the rest of us are able to do on our own. And like a lot of us that practice yoga, we know from our yoga practice that we can manage stress better. We know how to breathe when we remind ourselves. And the fourth one is very important. I feel like, a lot of times when you have a debilitating illness of any kind or something that's not changing, you kind of lose hope. And I feel like yoga has really instilled a sense of, renewal and freedom within the body. And again, the last ones are really available to anyone that practices any kind of yoga. Reduce stress, promoting relaxation, better lung function, flexibility, balance, strength, and an overall sense of well-being and mindfulness. So yeah.
There's a lot of research now that's available, how yoga can be so therapeutic for a lot of different ailments.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And so my process is, I work on my feet. So I honestly don't know what I'm going to do when I see a client for the first time. And so again, here the initial assessment, I kind of look at the person, I look at how they're sitting within their body, right? And that can also, I also take in, their demeanor, how they're doing, if they seem kind of, flattened or depressed. And of course, I have to take into consideration the parts of the body that don't move, the parts of the body that do move on their own, and also the devices that I might be needing to move around, like respirators. Some people will use a chair to sit in, and like I said, a recliner. Some people lay on the floor, some people are on their beds. And also, being able to give them things to work on when I'm not there. And a lot of people learn how to do some things in their wheelchairs with caregivers or loved ones. And it's also, as a yoga therapist, I'm sure you know, Amita, it's really important to understand the social setting and how much support the person has.
Yeah.
And again, I use my body, right? It's very much like Thai yoga massage in a lot of ways, where we learn to use a form of Thai yoga massage to put our adaptive yoga students into poses. So yeah, that's about the process. And here's another client of mine who is in a version of child's pose, right? So a lot of adaptive poses don't look like what we would imagine them to look like. They have to be really created for each person. And so this is a very specialized variation of child's pose. He's got a block between his feet to keep his knees and his ankles in alignment with his sitting bones. And he's getting a lot of the same benefits as somebody else would be in child's pose, right? To alleviate stress and anxiety, to kind of go inward, to lengthen and stretch the spine, to relieve neck and back pain and increase circulation. So, so this is a quadriplegic who has an incomplete injury, who could use her shoulders. So we would get her to get her hand around part of the strap. So she was involved to getting her foot in the strap, and she was able to help with her upper shoulders and biceps, doing hand to foot pose. A lot of us do this standing, or we do this reclining, Supta Astapada. It doesn't matter if you can't feel the tendons and the muscles, the energy and the blood and the oxygen still need to move through the body, even if the body doesn't move.
Right? Yeah. So you're helping her to get the movement going.
Yes. Yeah. And so this picture is a little bit dark, but you can see that this woman's lying on the floor with her arms over her head, and her left knee is supported and her right foot is on my shoulder. And this is her variation of a lunge pose, standing right crescent lunge pose. And she's able to open her heart and increase the thyroid function anytime we bring the arms over the heart. And again, right, she's living with paraplegia, and so she can't feel the action, but the same thing is true, right? That energy is still coming through. And it's really good for digestion, and especially if you sit a lot, right? And you're in a wheelchair a lot. We all know what it's like not to be able to eliminate. And so yoga is really important for people that sit a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So. And this is another student living with paraplegia, and this is her variation of downward facing dog. So her hands are on a chair and she's sitting in her wheelchair instead of, that V shape that we know so well. And we might not recognize this as downward facing dog or Adho Mukha Svanasana, right? If we didn't weren't told that that's what it was. And this is really important for stretching the spine is so important because all of our nerves run up the spine, right? And so it really assists in keeping those vertebrae, making space between the vertebrae, bringing oxygen into the body, and also really balancing out the nervous system. Yeah, and here is a student living with congenital amputation, which happens in the womb, right? So she was born without full limbs, and here there's a sandbag on her right leg over that right in the groin, and on the left stump over that left leg. So it's keeping her rooted and grounded while she gets a stretch in those hip flexors. And this is her warrior 2, right? And she's still in her variation of warrior 2. And
yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah, and these are just a couple quotes of how it's helped a couple of my clients.
Sure.
Yeah, and I love this one. I'm sure we all know this one, Anita. It's just a beautiful quote, and it's really true too, right? We want to really empower our students, regardless of what kind of yoga it is, and be somebody who holds the space but doesn't take their practice from them.
No, it is definitely, like you said, yoga therapy is self-empowering process. and it truly is. I mean, in your case, you're doing such a amazing work with people who don't, who cannot do themselves. But for other people also, for anyone, I think yoga therapy is self-realization, self-empowerment.
Absolutely.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
We are open for questions. I see people in Zoom, so you're welcome to ask questions. So please write it in the chat window or in the Q&A, and Laura can answer any questions for you.
Yeah. I'm not sure. Let me see if I can pull up the chat.
If you have any questions for Laura, please let us know. So you talked about, maybe if someone's thinking about a question. So you talked about the group classes. So the group classes, you would do it only for the like for all kind of different ailments, or just specifically for ALS?
I'm so glad you asked that again, because I didn't get into it. So in Colorado, basically with adaptive yoga, if you're dealing with somebody with a brain injury that has a hard time moving, spinal cord, ALS, MS, Parkinson's, I've worked with the whole gamut. So everybody's going to have a different level of injury in different parts of their body that are affected, right? So when I teach an adaptive yoga class, in the classes that I've participated in, some people stay in chairs, some people get on the floor, but we have at least 2 people assisting each student. So when I taught at John Muir Hospital in Walnut Creek, I had a class for ALS specifically here in California, and I had them come with a caregiver or a family member, so that when I showed to lift the arm, and I worked with a student too, and pull the arm across or put that person into a twist, the caregiver, the family member were part of it. And it's basically a partner adaptive yoga setting, right? Because I can't be with 8 people at once. So yeah.
It's like the Lamaze class, the pregnancy class,
Right. You need your partner with you to help you. Absolutely. Yeah. And I was a doula and a midwife when I was younger. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that helps. And it helps them calm down, when they're doing this yoga classes with you, like especially.
Absolutely. I have just gotten so much feedback that, and the as you know, Amita, a lot of PT and things like that, physical therapy and occupational therapy, are no longer covered for people that have diseases that are progressive, right? Our healthcare system doesn't cover that. And so they seek out this care privately. Hopefully one day yoga therapy will be covered by insurance, like some other things are, right? Like acupuncture and like massage, because everybody deserves to live in their body in the best possible manner, right? Everybody deserves the best quality of life that they can possibly have, regardless of the body they're living in or the body, what they're living with. So
absolutely. I feel that, I don't know, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I feel that a lot of us, including myself, are not aware of yoga as therapeutic modality, in the sense, we know yoga, to do yoga, like going in a class and doing all kind of different poses. And yoga is very commercialized, I should say that, like
very much so.
Lululemon kind of yoga, which is different. It's more of exercise. That's how, kind of from a marketing positioning point of view, like,
Absolutely.
And a lot of people don't know that yoga is therapeutic for a lot of medical ailments, like kind of what you're doing.
Yes. As a matter of fact, the gentleman that has had ALS for 19 years, that was in the second, I think the first slide actually, with his legs in Padma. Yeah. He, after about 2.5 years of, pressing on his lungs with my feet, I hold and I literally push on the rib cage. His doctor, for the first time in years, found lung sounds in the bottom of his lungs. And so yoga therapy works and yoga works, right? Even if somebody comes to a class because they have an injured shoulder, they're like, I'll take a few yoga classes, gentle yoga classes to fix that. Sometimes, a lot of times people stay because it's working on deeper and deeper levels, and literally it moves prana around in the body, right? And really we can get a lot of the workout aspects in a gym, but the therapeutic aspects of yoga are very deep, right? And I think pranayama and meditation are a huge, big part of that.
That's what I was going to ask you next, is that you most of the slides, you showed the different asanas, right? Downward dog and other asanas, but you also do some breath work, because right, without pranayama, without meditation or mantras or mudras, for example,
right?
Right. So do you do that kind of work also with them?
As a matter of fact, every single yoga class I teach, whether it's a strength and endurance class, mat, ashtanga, I start with a mudra and a theme for every week. And my ALS clients and anybody else with disabilities that I'm seeing gets the same practice. It's across the board, but their physical practice looks differently. If they can't place their hands on their heart and their belly, I put them there for them. And we breathe together, even if they're on a respirator. Instead of saying pull in breath to the belly, the ribs, and the heart, I'll say, receive the breath that you're receiving, and be aware of the inhales that you're receiving and the exhales you're receiving. So in the beginning and the end of every practice, there's a meditation, a mudra, and a breath practice to that person's, specific to that person. So thank you for asking that. Yes, it's all the part of yoga therapy. Otherwise, it would just be another exercise, right?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Any questions from people who are listening to this? You can ask any questions before I wrap up. Any questions or any comments, any feedback? Please put it in the chat window. Okay. All right. So, is there anything else you want to show a 2-minute demo? I don't know if that's appropriate for me to ask you, or.
Oh yeah, I mean, I have my dogs. I don't have anybody else to demo on.
Okay. Yeah, that's right. Okay, all right. So then I think we'll wrap up this session. If no one has any questions, any feedback, or any comments, what we'll do is we'll wrap up these questions. You're welcome to, send us the comment. I had put our email in the last slide. And if you have any questions for Laura or for us, and, you're welcome to reach out to us. All right, so namaste. Thank you so much for being with us. And any last thoughts from you, Laura, before I wrap up?
I just want to thank you, Amita, for the opportunity to at least talk about it, what adaptive yoga is and how passionate I am about it. So thank you. And thank you for those of you who joined us today. And if you have any questions down the road, I'm sure Amita can get them to me.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us. Have the rest of Sunday afternoon. Have a great Sunday afternoon. Namaste.
Thank you.